you seeing there?
John, rocket fire right now into southern Israel. I'm going to have my cameraman pan up. This is a massive barrage being fired from the northern part of the Gaza Strip into southern Israel. You are likely to see some of these interception rounds get fired off depending on how high and at what angle these rockets are being fired. Just listen here for a second because we're probably going to hear some explosions. I'm going to let you listen here. More sirens going off right now in southern Israel. And you can see that rockets are being fired from the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Still, this is earlier than the barrage that we talked about could happen from Islamic Jihad at 9. I'm going to have my cameraman pan back up. This is the scene that Israel has been dealing with over the past 24 hours. Sirens blaring across the southern and central part of the country. And there is an effort right now by the Israeli military to at least have some sort of structure so they can continue their operation in Gaza. We have seen videos from inside the Gaza Strip this evening that Hamas and Islamic Jihad say will require retaliation. One of those has to do with a 13-story building inside Gaza City that was hit with an Israeli airstrike just about an hour ago. And just give me a second here. I need to look up here. One second here. They're fired towards Tel Aviv. My producer's telling me right now that these rockets are being fired towards Tel Aviv. That 9 p.m. local time ultimatum that was put out by Islamic Jihad is no longer the case. Israel is currently under attack from Gaza, the second largest city in Israel. Tel Aviv, I can give you a little bit of context about this city. This is a place that is often referred to as a European city. It's got a big beach and a young population. It's not necessarily as religious as places like Jerusalem. And it's a city that often stays away from the politics and the conflict. We understand that right now it is under attack from these rockets, and Tel Aviv has sirens blaring, according to my producer that I'm talking to right now. I just want to have my cameraman pan to the skyline here so you can see off in the distance. Those smokestacks that you see are basically the dividing line between Israel and Gaza. When you think about the border and how close these two areas are, we are talking about just a matter of feet.
Trey,
Yes.
It's John. I want to ask you this question. You were in Sderot yesterday, which of course has been the subject of so many rocket attacks coming in from the Gaza Strip. And now that Hamas is targeting the capital, targeting Tel Aviv, which really is sort of the financial hub of Israel, is that going to change Israel's response? I mean, could we see all-out war break out here between Israel and Hamas?
Yes, these are the types of actions by groups inside Gaza that lead to war. We saw yesterday factions in Gaza threaten rocket fire on Jerusalem, an action that had not been taken since 2014, when a massive 50-plus day operation called Protective Edge, referred to by the Israelis as Sukatan, developed. There were casualties on both sides. We saw extremely tense days of fighting. I was here during that time and entered Gaza, and the amount of fighting was extremely significant. I want to show you the scene here. They are still firing. These are medium to long range rockets. I can tell you that just by looking at them. And another indication, John, is the interception rounds that would normally be coming out of the Iron Dome missile defense system right next to me are not firing off. This means there are other systems likely in central Israel that are going to pick up this fire from Gaza. These are going off in separate directions. This is a coordinated effort by factions inside Gaza to respond to the Israeli airstrikes tonight. We have seen this back and forth across the border today, all starting yesterday. I do want to give you a little bit of context about how we got here. There has been major tension erupting in this part of the world, specifically in the city of Jerusalem, over two issues. And you hear that explosion. That's a short-range interception round, likely around Sderot, like the area that we were talking about. We can hear that off in the distance. But we got here for two major reasons. One had to do with the issue of Sheikh Jarrah, a neighborhood in Jerusalem where Palestinian families could be evicted. The other one having to do with, I'm just going to make sure my crew's down here. Guys, make sure you're next to the car. Stay with me here, John. I just want to get us a little bit of cover in case. Walk with me. Walk with me. All right. Next to the car here. Basically, we are not near a shelter, but we are near interception rounds, Israel's missile defense system. We are okay, but we're just taking precautions here because you never know where these rockets are going to land, and oftentimes, even when they are intercepted, there is shrapnel coming down from the interception rounds. To get back to what we were talking about, though, John, two major issues. One having to do with a very specific neighborhood in Jerusalem. Another one having to do with the holy month of Ramadan. Tomorrow is Eid, the last day of Ramadan, the holiest month in Islam. And Muslims, Palestinians in Jerusalem were clashing with police this week at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, and that has led to a lot of the tension. All of these things happening together, along with political issues for both the Israelis and the Palestinians. It's all coming to a focal point right now, leading to a massive conflict that started out, as we said, was just demonstrations and clashes, and now the region is on the brink of war.
Trey, of course, we'd like you to stay with us on this breaking news. If you feel like you need to go to safety, do that right now. But I'll ask you what the response is that we're hearing from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at this time, knowing that he issued that video statement saying that Israel would step up its strikes on Gaza, and where he stands in this moment, if you've heard.
Earlier today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a statement to the Israeli people. He was really addressing the population here, saying that if this rocket fire continues, there will be a severe Israeli response. And you can hear those explosions in the distance, which indicates Hamas and Islamic Jihad are not just firing towards Tel Aviv, but also towards central Israel and probably a lot of the border towns. But the Prime Minister wanted to make clear that this operation is just getting underway from his perspective. We spoke with a number of sources in the Israeli military today to try to get a better picture of what the Israeli military was preparing to do. Would they be moving in ground forces and troops? We know they called up 5,000 reserve members, but the Prime Minister is calling the shots here. Despite the political uncertainty in Israel, he is still in charge, along with his Defense Minister, Benny Gantz, and they say they are going to make Hamas pay a heavy price. And if today is any indication, there will be airstrikes against significant infrastructure inside Gaza. We've spent weeks, oftentimes during different conflicts in Gaza, and there is a lot of infrastructure where groups there are firing rockets. They're storing rockets. They're storing anti-tank missiles. But one other thing to note, and we have to talk about this amid this conflict, it's the civilian population in Gaza. There are nearly 2 million Palestinians living in Gaza. The vast majority of those people are not terrorists. They are not looking to kill Israeli civilians. They're looking to be human. They're looking to live their lives, and we've spent a lot of time talking to those people as well. And I think it's important to make this distinction while we cover this conflict and the rocket fire and the barrages towards massive Israeli population centers. This is a war, and a war is not fought by civilians, but oftentimes the consequences and the prices at the highest level are paid by those innocent bystanders. John, Sandra?
Trey, in terms of the Israeli response, we've got about a minute left here. In terms of the Israeli response, so far we've seen airstrikes. Is there a possibility that, as we have seen in times past, that Israeli defense forces could go in on the ground to try to clear out these missile storage bunkers? I assume that most of the missiles are being fired from mobile launchers, so those are difficult to go after, but maybe go after the infrastructure on the ground as opposed to simply from the air.
Absolutely, John. We talked earlier this year with Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz. We were sitting down with him in Tel Aviv at his office, talking about Gaza and what preparations were being made should a conflict like this erupt. We are in the midst of what that conversation focused on, and he said they were preparing for any possibility, and that could include a ground operation. What we're likely to see in the coming days, especially now that tonight factions in Gaza are firing on Tel Aviv, is preparation for just anything. John, Sandra?
Trey, thank you for your continued reporting from the border there. We will, of course, be checking back in with you shortly. Please stay safe. Thank you.
All right, and we'll take a short break, and we'll be back after this. Stay with us as you see another rocket there coming up over the southern part of Israel from Gaza, another barrage.